Close your eyes. When I mention the word desert, what do you see? Burning golden sand dunes, the scorching heat of the sun. Erase that memory, because the largest desert on this planet is a stark white paradox. It's a colossal monster, larger than the entire European continent and nearly twice the size of Australia. But the most terrifying thing isn't its size, but its solitude. In this immense expanse, humans are merely transient visitors. No one was born here. No one truly settled here. A forbidden land that has never allowed us to call home. What's special about Antarctica? Antarctica is a place where nature deals in absolutes. It is a kingdom of frozen extremes where temperatures have plunged to minus 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to freeze the air itself. In this paralyzing chill, rain is physically impossible. It falls instead as diamond dust, tiny, glittering ice crystals suspended in a sky that holds less humidity than the sands of Arabia. This creates the world's greatest paradox. Beneath your feet lies 70% of the planet's fresh water, locked away in a frozen vault. You stand upon the Earth's largest reservoir, yet you are stranded in its driest desert. Here, abundance disguises itself as absence. This landscape is guarded by a silence that feels almost heavy. Without the rustle of leaves, the hum of traffic, or the movement of life, the stillness is absolute. Perhaps because of this hostility, Antarctica remains the only land on Earth that belongs to no one. On a planet carved up by borders and claimed by armies, this continent stands apart. There are no cities here, no native history, and no flags of conquest. By international agreement, it is reserved solely for peace and discovery. Humanity does not rule this white wilderness. We are merely allowed to visit as humble guests, observing a world that demands we leave without a trace. Drake Passage. Before reaching Antarctica, every expedition must cross the Drake Passage. This stretch of ocean stands between the inhabited world and the polar south, and there is no way around it. The journey begins here, long before ice appears on the horizon. The conditions are often harsh. Wind and waves move freely across open water, and ships are forced to push forward slowly. Decks are wet. Equipment must be secured constantly. Walking requires balance and attention. Seasickness is common, and rest is irregular. Even experienced crews feel the strain as the crossing continues hour after hour. This passage can last several days. During that time, there are no stops and no alternatives. Communication is limited, and outside assistance is far away. Turning back becomes less realistic with each passing hour. The journey is not dramatic, but it is demanding, both physically and mentally. Crossing the Drake Passage is not an arrival, it is a transition. It marks the moment when travel shifts from planning to endurance. Only after this barrier is passed can ships move farther south, into colder waters and deeper isolation. For those aiming for Antarctica, the Drake Passage is the price to pay to get there. South Georgia Island. After the ordeal of open water, South Georgia feels almost unreal. The land rises abruptly from the ocean, dark and rugged, as if the Southern Ocean has finally exhaled. The beaches are black with volcanic sand, but their color is quickly overwhelmed by life. Hundreds of thousands of king penguins crowd the shoreline, standing shoulder to shoulder in patterns that seem chaotic until they slowly reveal their order. Their bodies form shifting fields of gold and pale orange against the muted tones of rock, ice, and cloud. Calls echo across the valleys, carried by cold air, filling a place that moments ago felt empty. This abundance has earned South Georgia its reputation as the Serengeti of the Southern Ocean. Yet the spectacle is not gentle. Life gathers here because survival elsewhere is impossible. Every movement is purposeful. Every return from the sea is earned. Among this relentless rhythm of feeding and breeding, it is easy to forget that humans too once arrived here in desperation rather than curiosity. That memory surfaces in the story of Ernest Shackleton. After his ship, the Endurance, was crushed by pack ice. South Georgia became more than a destination. It became hope itself. Shackleton and his men crossed mountains that had never been mapped, driven not by conquest, but by the simple refusal to die. Standing on these shores, surrounded by a living mass that has adapted perfectly to extremes, the contrast is stark. Nature thrives without hesitation, while human survival here has always depended on endurance, humility, and a measure of luck. The elephant seal beaches. But beneath this abundance, order gives way to something far more primal. Male elephant seals arrive like living monuments, bodies weighing close to 4 tons, dragging themselves from the sea with an effort that reshapes the shoreline. Their size is overwhelming, but size alone is not enough. What follows is ritualized violence, repeated season after season, without mercy or negotiation. When rivals meet, the air fills with deep, resonant roars, chests collide, and bodies slam together with a force that shakes the ground beneath them. Blood is not unusual here. Injury is expected. Retreat is rare. These battles are not about territory in the human sense. They are about access, about the fragile right to pass on existence. At the center of each confrontation lies the harem, a tightly guarded circle of females that represents both reward and responsibility. The victorious male does not celebrate, he endures. For weeks, he barely eats, barely sleeps. Driven by instinct to defend his position against any challenger willing to test him, the beach becomes an arena where dominance is temporary and survival is measured in stamina rather than triumph. Watching this unfold is unsettling, yet impossible to dismiss. There is no cruelty here, only biology stripped of restraint. The elephant seal beaches reveal a truth. Antarctica does not soften. Life persists, not through harmony, but through relentless adaptation. In this place, existence is earned through endurance, and nature offers no consolation to the defeated. Deception Island. At first glance, the island appears almost harmless, a low mass of dark rock rising quietly from the Southern Ocean. Nothing about its outline suggests danger, and that is where the deception begins. Deception Island earns its name slowly. From a distance, it resembles any other sub-Antarctic island shaped by wind and water. Only as a ship draws closer does the illusion unravel. A narrow opening reveals itself, and passing through it feels less like arrival than intrusion. The sea suddenly grows calm, and without climbing or landing, the vessel enters the interior of the island itself. This is not a bay. It is a flooded volcanic caldera. Deception Island is one of the very few active volcanoes on the Antarctic continent, shaped as much by the ocean as by fire beneath the Earth's crust. There is no towering cone, no crater at the summit. Instead, the center of the volcano lies open and submerged, allowing ships to sail directly into the heart of a sleeping giant. Nowhere else on the planet does this happen. Steam rises from black sand beaches where heat still escapes from below. Along the shoreline, another layer of history surfaces. Rusted oil tanks, collapsing structures, and scattered debris mark the remains of a whaling station abandoned decades ago. These ruins speak of a time when people did not come here to observe or understand, but to extract and leave. Thousands of whales were processed on these shores, their bodies reduced to fuel, their absence barely questioned. The metal corrodes slowly, but the memory endures. Deception Island stands as evidence that Antarctica was not always treated as a sanctuary. It was once seen as a resource to be exploited, a remote place where consequences felt distant. Lemaire Channel and Paradise Bay. To reach the deeper bays, ships must often navigate one of the most spectacular corridors on Earth, the Lemaire Channel. Nicknamed the Kodak Gap by early photographers, this passage is deceptive. Steep cliffs hem the ship in on both sides, rising nearly 3,000 feet straight out of the sea. The channel is barely wide enough for a vessel to pass, forcing captains to navigate with extreme caution through a shifting maze of floating ice. As the ship enters the channel, the wind often dies down, blocked by the sheer walls of rock and snow. The water becomes a dark mirror, reflecting the jagged peaks so perfectly that it becomes difficult to tell where the glacier ends and the ocean begins. It feels less like sailing and more like gliding through a canyon of silence. Here, you are not looking at the landscape. You are completely swallowed by it. Paradise Bay reveals itself through restraint rather than spectacle. The water here often lies flat and undisturbed, forming a surface that reflects ice, mountain, and sky with unnerving precision. Nothing appears exaggerated. The scale is vast, yet contained. Ice drifts slowly, as if aware that sudden movement would feel out of place. Sound diminishes quickly. The silence is not total, but it is controlled, broken only by the distant crack of ice or the soft movement of water against the hull. It is enough to quiet the mind without overwhelming it. This calm has made Paradise Bay more beauty. It has become a place of presence. For decades, research stations have operated along these sheltered waters, drawn by conditions that allow observation rather than survival alone. Scientists come here to study glaciers, marine life, weather patterns, and the slow changes that rarely announce themselves elsewhere. Their buildings are modest, functional, and temporary by design, standing quietly against a landscape that does not acknowledge them. Paradise Bay exists in a delicate balance between isolation and attention. It is calm enough to host sustained human study, yet untouched enough to remain indifferent to it. The world beneath the Antarctic surface. What lies below the surface of Antarctic waters is not immediately visible, yet it defines everything above. Beneath the cold skin of the ocean, movement replaces stillness, and life follows rules shaped by precision rather than abundance. Leopard seals patrol these waters with quiet confidence. Their bodies move effortlessly, almost gracefully, through the dark blue, eyes alert, jaws capable of sudden violence. They are not reckless hunters. They wait, observe, and strike only when the moment is exact. In their presence, survival depends on awareness, not speed. Danger here is controlled, not chaotic. Sharing these waters are humpback whales, animals of immense scale that move with a calm that feels deliberate. Their size dominates the frame, yet their behavior does not. They travel slowly, filtering krill from the water in vast mouthfuls, feeding on creatures so small they seem insignificant, yet powerful enough together to sustain giants. When they surface, the ocean responds gently, as if adjusting itself around their mass rather than resisting it. There is no confrontation here, only rhythm. This coexistence reveals a complete food chain, one that functions because each element remains in balance. Predator and prey, massive and minute, motion and stillness, all connected through water that carries energy from the ice to the open sea. Antarctica reveals itself here not as a frozen void, but as a living system. The ice above feeds the ocean below, and the ocean returns life upward. The wolves of the sea, killer whales. While the humpback whales represent the gentle giants of these waters, another presence dictates the rhythm of fear and survival. The orcas. Often called killer whales, they are not whales at all, but the largest members of the dolphin family. Here in Antarctica, they operate with a frightening intelligence. They do not hunt as individuals, they hunt as a tactical unit. One of nature's most extraordinary displays of physics and cooperation happens right here among the floating ice. When a seal seeks refuge on a drifting floe, it believes it is safe from the water below. It is wrong. The orcas align themselves side by side, swimming in perfect synchronization toward the ice. At the last moment, they dive, creating a precise wave that washes over the surface, cracking the ice or simply washing the seal into the water. It is a calculated act, passed down through generations. Watching a pod of orcas patrol the glassy waters is to witness the apex of marine evolution. Their dorsal fins cut the surface like knives, a signal that in this pristine wilderness, beauty and brutality are never far apart. Gentoo and Adelie penguin colonies. On the grey, rock-strewn ground, the smallest dramas unfold. Adelie and Gentoo penguins spend their days bent low, carefully selecting pebbles one by one, building nests with a focus that borders on obsession. Here, stones are not incidental. They are currency. They are protection against melting snow. They are, quite literally, the foundation of a home. A well-chosen pebble can strengthen a nest. A missing one can weaken a bond. This is where the thieves emerge. Penguins steal stones openly, often in full view of their neighbors, darting away with quick, guilty movements that betray no shame. Arguments follow. Chases break out. The scene carries an unmistakable sense of humor, not because it is playful by intention, but because the stakes are so small and so serious at the same time. In this world, a pebble can function as a gift, a promise, even a form of courtship. These colonies reveal a lighter rhythm within Antarctica's severity. The birds are small, persistent, and endlessly busy, turning bare ground into ordered life. The Ross Ice Shelf. The Ross Ice Shelf does not feel like land, and it does not behave like sea. It presents itself as a vertical boundary, a continuous wall of ice rising from the water with no visible end. Its surface is smooth and pale, almost indifferent, yet its scale resists comprehension. This is not a glacier clinging to a coastline. It is a floating mass of ice, so vast that it reshapes the ocean beneath it, drifting slowly, silently, according to forces far beyond human influence. Standing before it, familiar reference points fail. The height alone is disorienting, towering above the water like a frozen horizon turned upright. The eye searches for variation, for detail, but finds only repetition. Ice meets sky, sky meets ice. Occasionally, a crack echoes from deep within the shelf, a low sound that carries weight rather than volume, reminding you that this structure is alive, always moving, always under tension. When fragments break away, they do not fall with urgency. The Ross Ice Shelf has no interest in human presence. It cannot be approached, altered, or influenced in any meaningful way. Here, humanity is reduced to observation. The ice does not respond, it does not resist. 2. Port Lockroy, the Penguin Post Office. Port Lockroy appears suddenly against the white silence, a small cluster of black and red buildings anchored to bare rock on YAKUTIA Island. From a distance, it feels almost improbable, a human shape outlined sharply against snow, ice, and sea. The paint is weathered but deliberate, designed not for beauty, but for visibility in a world where white erases everything else. Around it, the water is often calm, broken only by drifting ice and the low shapes of penguins moving between land and sea. This place was built during World War II, not for comfort or permanence. But for presence. Today, it stands as a living museum, unchanged in form, holding the outline of another era. Outside, flagpoles, wooden walkways, and storage sheds sit exposed to wind and salt air, quietly aging in place. Port Lockroy is also the southernmost post office on Earth. Each season, sacks of postcards are carried in and out, stamped and sent northward, small messages traveling slowly across oceans and continents. It is one of the few places in Antarctica where the outside world feels briefly within reach. Yet humans are visitors here. Gentoo penguins surround the buildings, nesting along the paths and gathering at the doorways. They move freely, indifferent to schedules or significance. At Port Lockroy, human history and wildlife coexist without hierarchy. Each simply occupying the same narrow strip of ground at the edge of the frozen world. McMurdo Station was never meant to be a place to live. It exists for a single purpose: to support science at the edge of the world. Every structure here is temporary by intention, designed to function, not to endure. Nothing grows, nothing settles. When the ice shifts or the mission ends, everything can be removed without regret. This is not a town, and no one comes here to stay. Presence is conditional, measured in seasons rather than years. Yet within this framework of utility, human life inevitably follows. Scientists, engineers, pilots, mechanics, and support crews arrive carrying more than equipment. They bring habits shaped thousands of miles away. They mark time with shared meals, conversations, and routines that mirror the world they left behind. Music plays inside insulated walls. Coffee is brewed against the cold. Holidays are acknowledged even when the sun refuses to rise or set. These gestures do not turn McMurdo into a community. They make isolation survivable. The station operates as a hub, a logistical heart that allows research to reach deeper into the continent. Supplies move through it. Data flows outward from it. Every action is purposeful, every presence justified. Outside, Antarctica remains unchanged, indifferent to human effort. Inside, order is maintained through cooperation and discipline. Mount Erebus stands anchored in ice, its dark slopes rising through snow and wind that rarely subside. It is one of the southernmost active volcanoes on Earth, and unlike most volcanoes, its activity is continuous rather than explosive. Deep within its crater, a persistent lava lake circulates slowly, releasing heat and gas into air that remains below freezing for most of the year. The mountain does not erupt in violence. It breathes. Molten rock rises, collapses, and reforms in an endless cycle. That has endured for decades. Reaching Erebus is neither simple nor assured. The mountain is isolated by distance, weather, and terrain that resists movement at every step. High winds, extreme cold, and unstable ice limit access to brief windows when ascent is even possible. There are no permanent routes, no fixed paths that remain reliable from one season to the next. Every approach is negotiated carefully, dependent on conditions that can change without warning. Even experienced teams advance slowly, aware that retreat is often the only safe decision. At the summit, fire exists openly. In a place defined by cold, steam drifts upward, where heat escapes the crater, vanishing almost instantly into the polar sky. Erebus reveals a side of Antarctica that cannot be frozen or silenced. The McMurdo Dry Valleys stand apart even within Antarctica. Discovered in 1903 by British explorer Robert Falcon Scott, they are recognized as the driest place on Earth. For nearly 2 million years, no rain has fallen here. Snow rarely settles, and ice, so dominant across the continent, is largely absent. These valleys exist in defiance of their surroundings. Carved into the landscape and left exposed while glaciers loom nearby. Their emptiness is not accidental. Powerful katabatic winds descend from the polar plateau, accelerating as they funnel through the valleys. These winds can reach speeds of nearly 200 miles per hour, stripping away moisture before it can accumulate. Any snow that falls is quickly sublimated, turning directly from ice into vapor. What remains is bare ground, salt-stained soils, and ancient surfaces that have remained untouched for millions of years. Scientists are drawn to this place not despite its hostility, but because of it. The extreme cold, aridity, and chemical makeup of the soil closely resemble conditions found on the surface of Mars. For this reason, space agencies such as NASA study the dry valleys to understand how life might persist in environments once thought uninhabitable. Covering roughly 1,800 square miles, the valleys continue to challenge assumptions about where life can exist and how planets evolve over time. Within the dry valleys lies a feature that looks like a wound in the ice. At the terminus of the Taylor Glacier, a blood-red waterfall spills out onto the frozen surface of Lake Bonny. For decades, explorers believed this was algae. They were wrong. This is blood falls. The red color comes from iron-rich salt water that has been trapped beneath the glacier for over 1 million years. When this ancient liquid finally reaches the surface and touches the air, the iron oxidizes instantly, turning a violent shade of rust. It is a geological time capsule, releasing water that last saw sunlight before humans walked the Earth. Inside this brine, microbes survive in darkness without oxygen, breathing iron instead of air. Blood falls is proof that life can endure in the most impossible circumstances, waiting eons for a chance to emerge. The surface here appears deceptively simple. A wide expanse of white stretches outward, unbroken, offering no obvious resistance. People move slowly across it, on foot or on wide tires designed to float rather than sink. Each step, each rotation of a wheel is deliberate. There are no paths to follow, no markers that promise direction. Progress is measured not by distance, but by effort. Movement becomes the only sign of life. Against the vast stillness, a single figure feels exposed, almost fragile. Sound travels poorly here. The crunch of snow fades quickly, swallowed by open space. There is no scent carried by the air, no texture beyond cold and light. Those who cross this terrain do not arrive by accident. Every journey is planned, supplied, and time-bound. The environment allows no improvisation. Fatigue accumulates quickly. Weather can erase intention without warning. The ice does not adapt to human presence. Humans adapt to it. Briefly, this interior world reveals a boundary, not one drawn on maps, but one felt in the body. The farther inward one moves, the clearer it becomes that this place is not meant to be occupied. It can be crossed, it can be studied, but it does not invite return. Here, life persists only in motion, passing through a landscape that remains unchanged, indifferent to every footprint left behind. Ice and the emperor penguins. Winter arrives before the sun returns. As the ocean freezes, a new world forms from darkness and cold. Stretching outward as solid ice, where waves once moved freely. This is not a place of refuge. Temperatures fall far below what the human body can endure. Winds sweep across the surface without obstruction, carrying snow that scours everything in its path. For months, the landscape exists in near total darkness, defined not by sight, but by endurance. It is here that emperor penguins gather, choosing the harshest season for the most fragile task. While the sea locks itself in ice, the females lay a single egg and then leave, disappearing into the darkness to feed. What remains are the males, each balancing an egg on his feet, shielding it beneath a fold of skin. They do not build nests. They do not hunt. They wait. For weeks that stretch into months, they endure hunger, exhaustion, and storms that can strip warmth from exposed flesh in moments. Movement becomes collective. The penguins press together, rotating slowly, allowing each bird brief access to the warmth of the group before returning to the edge. There is no leader, no signal, only instinct refined by generations of loss and survival. Many will not make it. Some eggs will be lost to wind, cold, or misstep. The ice offers no mercy. In a place where life is barely tolerated, survival depends on sacrifice measured not in moments, but in months. The emperor penguins do not conquer winter, they endure it, and in doing so, they become the clearest symbol of Antarctica itself. Antarctica stands as a quiet mirror of humanity. Within its vast layers of ice lies the memory of the planet itself, a record of climates long past and changes still unfolding. This land belongs to no nation. No borders are drawn here, no identity is forced upon it. Antarctica exists without competition. Without the need to claim or display power, it is governed instead by agreement, a shared promise respected by all who arrive, a place where restraint matters more than ownership and cooperation replaces ambition. How we treat this continent reveals more than its future. It reflects our own.